Welcome to Conversations with Zaki Baruti. Once again, tonight we're going to have a very interesting discussion. But like always, I'd like to give a shout out. First of all, a shout out to my family, my immediate family. Shout out to the UAPO family, Universal African Peoples Organization, as well as to the people behind the cameras, Bill and Bob and Brother James. And last but not least, I'd like to give a shout out to Mary Intrup Lewis, Mary Intrup Lewis, Mary Commons, Maurice Falls, and Keith Anton Willis. So on that note, I want to welcome into the studio with me Mr. Tom Shepard, who has a very important position in the city under the leadership of the president of the Board of Aldermen. Welcome to Conversations with Zaki Baruti, sir.
Glad to be here, Zaki.
Okay, then. Share with our audience your role at City Hall in terms of the position with President of the St. Louis Board of Aldermen, Louis Reed.
Sure, I'm the Chief of Staff to the President of the Board of Aldermen. The President of the Board of Aldermen is a citywide elected position. Louis Reed is the President of the Board of Aldermen and the head of the legislative branch of government. So what that means is the President presides over the board meetings that you see on Friday morning, every morning, and at 10 o'clock Friday morning. And what I do is prepare, make sure the president is prepared for the meeting, go through the legislation that's being introduced. We also assign board bills that aldermen introduce. We assign them to a committee based off of what is entailed in that board bill. We have 15 committees at the Board of Aldermen. Some of the more well-known ones are the Public Safety Committee, the HUD's Committee, and the Ways and Means Committee, which is the Budget Committee. The president also sits on the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, which is the fiscal body of the city of St. Louis. As his chief of staff, I meet with other members of the boards. There's 3 members on that Board of Estimate and Apportionment: the comptroller, the mayor, and the president of the board. As the chief of staff to the president, I meet with the other
Along with
members.
the mayor, you did say the mayor.
Yes, the mayor, the comptroller, and president of the board. So prior to the Board of Estimate and Apportionment meetings, the staff will meet and work out any differences we have as far as the budget. We'll try to work them out. Sometimes we get to the meeting and we have a disagreement, and there's a debate within the meeting. Also, the president's office has appointments on selection committees at the Board of Aldermen. So we have a member on every selection committee for contracts, except for construction contracts, which go through BPS, the Board of BPS. But we have a member on every 5-member selection committee. And these selection committees are the ones that interview vendors, take in requests for proposals, and hire contractors for the city. So we have 1 member on that. Usually we put Maurice Falls on that. He's a big advocate to make sure that the contracts have inclusion, because a lot of times if there's nobody at the table that brings up the issue of inclusion, we'll hire contractors and companies that don't have any kind of minority or women participation.
Now, digressing, again, just for our audience to be really clear in terms of the position of president of the St. Louis Board of Aldermen. First of all, how many aldermen are there for the city of St. Louis?
There are 28 aldermen in the city of St. Louis. So there's 28 wards, 1 alderman per ward. The president is a citywide elected position.
And what is his exact duties and responsibilities? I know you mentioned about committees and what have you, but what is the exact responsibility of the president?
He's the head of the legislative branch of government. So when legislation is introduced, he decides what committees they go to. He also assigns board members to the different committees at the Board of Aldermen. So there's 15 committees. The committee chairmanships are selected by seniority. So aldermen select which committees they want to chair. The president of the board assigns people to those committees.
Okay, then.
Okay, he also sits on the board, the Airport Commission. He's a member of East-West Gateway Council of Governments, and we have appointments on the Planning Commission, again, all selection committees in the city, and numerous other executive boards, functions in the city.
So yeah, it's a very, very important position at the top of city government.
Oh yeah, it's the second highest ranked elected office in the city of St. Louis. If the mayor, for some reason, can no longer perform his duties or her duties, then the president of the board immediately becomes the mayor.
Now, how long has he been holding that particular position?
He has served in that position for 10 years. Prior to that, he was alderman of the 6th Ward for 8 years.
Now, I understand, not understand, it's widely known that he had sought the office of mayor about 4 years ago.
Yes.
And in the race against...
Came really close. Mm-hmm.
Came really close. How close did he come?
Well, we had 45% of the vote.
You had 45%?
45% of the vote. Francis Lay had 23,000 votes. Lewis Reed had 19,000 votes, give or take some. Came very close to winning that race. What ended up changing the dynamics of that race and pushed Francis Slay over was that they made a concerted effort to have no Republican candidate for mayor in that primary, and there was a concerted effort by the Slay campaign to have Republicans vote for him, and those additional Republicans voting for him is what made the difference. So really, amongst Democrats, Reed won.
So within that race, I understand that Mayor Slay came into that campaign with a $3-point-some million budget.
Oh, yeah. He had $3.9 million. He had 100% name recognition, was already the incumbent mayor, so he was already in control of a lot of contracts and was able, to talk people out of, being a part of the Reed team or supporting Reed because of his, position.
I need you to hold on that thought because on the flip side of our break, we want to get into the dynamics because he's also running again. Yes. So on that note, then we'll be right back with Conversations with Zaki Baruti. Welcome back to Conversations with Zaki Baruti. We're in studio with Tom Shepard, who's the Chief
of Staff to the President of the Board of Aldermen.
Chief of Staff to the President of the Board of Aldermen. Lewis Reed.
Yes.
Now, as we were talking prior to the break, we were looking at the dynamics of what happened when President Lewis Reed ran for mayor 4 years ago.
Yes. And
fast forwarding it to today, he has threw his head back in the race again.
Yes.
And in this particular race, it's a crowded field.
It is.
Of Democrats. We have Democrats that's running, and we have Republicans that's running, as well as Green Party candidate. How many Democrats are in the race?
7.
7 Democrats.
Yes.
Okay, then. What has motivated President Reed to throw his head back in to the race for mayor?
From going all across this city, prior to the election 4 years ago and for the last 4 years, President Reed knows that there's still a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of help that people need. We have a crime issue that is out of control. The current administration has failed miserably to address that. We also have a vast lack of development on the north side of Delmar. We believe that's more related to, strategy and planning than resources. And President Reed feels that if he gets in that office, that he can bring in, new innovative techniques and a new planning and strategy to get those properties developed. We have a bank of LRA properties that, the LRA, these are properties that are owned by the city that are vacant, and they failed to move them, get people to buy them, and they've been sitting vacant for, the last 15 years, a lot of them.
In fact, when you mention about vacant buildings, our organization supported a press conference in front of one of the vacant buildings where a young lady had been assaulted and left to fend for herself.
And that's a part of President Lewis Reed's plan as mayor is to make sure that we have safe routes to school for our children.
Now, digressing, going back, some people would probably ask the question, what has he done as president of the Board of Aldermen? Can you cite a couple of really high points?
Oh, sure, yeah. He created a $1 million a year annually recurring youth crime prevention fund. Up to this point, that fund has donated money to numerous organizations throughout the city of St. Louis that address youth services, up to a total of $8 million at this point that he's put into the community.
For our youth?
For our youth.
Sounds great.
For after-school programs, arts programs, conflict resolution programs, things of that nature, yes.
Okay, so that's one accomplishment.
Oh, yeah. The other one is when he became president of the board, as I've said before, one of the powers of the president of the board is to assign members to committees. So one of the things that he did when he became president, he looked at the major committees of the Board of Aldermen, and really all the committees, and looked at what subject matter that committee dealt with. And he made sure he put members of the board on that committee whose communities were dealing with those subjects or those issues. So the Public Safety Committee, he made it majority Northside Alderman because Northside Aldermen were dealing with the majority of the public safety issues. The same with...
So he was in essence trying to provide equity in terms of economics and racially?
Exactly,
okay.
Exactly. The same thing, so you had the same thing, the Public Safety Committee, and he did the same things with the Ways and Means Committee, which is the Budget Committee, which decides where, financial resources of the city go, and also with the HUDS Committee, which is HUDZ, HUDS Committee, is the Housing and Urban Development and Zoning Committee, which deals with, development and housing within the city of St. Louis.
Okay then, so another question though, so our audience would know a little bit about Lewis Reed. He's a family man.
Yes.
Am I, okay.
Yes. Lewis Reed's married with 4 children, two daughters and 2 sons.
Okay then, and basically he's in what particular ward?
He's in the 6th ward.
In the 6th ward.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I understand that in the 6th ward there was a lot of, but prior to being president of the Board of Aldermen, he also was an alderman himself, right?
Yes.
And I guess one of the accomplishments was redevelopment in that area.
Oh,
you
yes.
want to speak to that real quick?
Yeah, he rebuilt the area of Lafayette Square and the Gate District in the 6th ward when he was alderman. And in Lafayette Square, there was a junkyard where they burned tires and numerous big abandoned buildings. And what he did, he came in, he worked with the community, created a development plan. He did get some tax incentives, but he made the tax incentives and the funding of those tax incentives based off what the community wanted. And in the end, he turned around that neighborhood where you have multiple commercial developments and restaurants, multiple housing developments where the values of property went up, and he also maintained the diversity of that area. A lot of times these developments happen and you push people out of the neighborhood. He also maintained that diversity.
Gentrification, in essence, occurs a lot of times with development, which pushed me to another critical issue as we look at the various issues that he's dealing with. Right now, we're sitting in New Life Evangelistic Center, which has been, and I want to put a shout out, if I didn't early on, to Reverend Rice and the kind of work that he's doing. There's an effort led by Mayor Slay, who's stepping down, of course, in this particular race, to have gentrification in this particular location as they move to try to close New Life Evangelistic Center. What I want you to address is the position, and you already touched on in terms of the LRA properties, which the city has a lot of that, which is a lot of vacant properties. And the whole question of homelessness and housing issues, that face people here in the St. Louis area. But we don't deal with that issue on the flip side of this break. Welcome back again with Conversations with Zaki Baruti. In studio with me is Brother Tom Shepard, who's the Chief
of Staff to Lewis Reed, who's the President of the Board of Aldermen.
And we're talking about his campaign for mayor of the city of St. Louis in a crowded field of Democratic candidates. And just before the break, we were talking about the issue of housing and homelessness. So what is his position? And by the way, it was a quick, would like to just point out the fact that there's a publication really done by our organization, Universal African Peoples Organization, that says Grassroots Political Special, published by the Universal African Peoples Organization. We need Reed, support the Thousands for Reed campaign, vote and elect Tuesday, March 7, 2017, Lewis Reed, Mayor of the City of St. Louis. And we've taken that position because, number one, we think that his years been in office qualifies as president of the Board of Office to, move on up to the position of mayor. But one of the critical issues that's in that particular publication is housing and homelessness. How will he deal with, you already addressed housing, but homelessness?
Oh.
What is this,
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we need to take a regional approach to it. We need to work with the county. He has been in discussions with the county on how they can, join us in dealing with homelessness and getting people housed. The Housing First model is the one that's, known throughout the country as a best practice, where you don't concentrate homelessness in one area of town, but you disperse it and you get people inside of homes. First, you get them in a house, and then you start working on getting them a job or taking care of whatever issues they may have that have led to homelessness, which could be many things. I mean, some of them, for some people, it may be just a market downturn and they lost a job. Some people may be dealing with a drug addiction that they could get help for. Some people may be dealing with mental illness that they could get help for. And some people may just be chronically homeless. And you have to, in identifying what people need, getting them in a home, and then providing them the things they need where they will not, where they can provide for themselves and have a place to stay. I know the mayor's office right now, they've tried to make it illegal to feed people, give people food that are homeless, which is, ridiculous. But President Reed believes that, the city has to do a much better job of providing for the homeless and coming to a resolution with the situation and a better way of doing things.
Now, let me go back and just have a direct question. Does Lewis Reed support Mayor Slade's effort to close down the New Life Evangelistic Center?
Well, look at this. How many people come in here tonight?
Hundreds, from what I understand.
Yeah, so I don't know. If they want the alternative is what, the sidewalk?
Right.
The steps or a park bench?
That just shows very heavy inhumanity.
Exactly.
Well as
now if the city did its part and addressed this homelessness, and we have a department that's well funded, Department of Health and Human Services. That's one of its charges, is to deal with homelessness, and they've had plan after plan after plan that hasn't been executed on. If the city does its part, there'll be nobody knocking on the door.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So with that said, then,
but people have to have a place to go.
Right.
And right now, there's
Reverend Wright.
He's providing this. Like I say, the alternative is to freeze to death on the streets, and he's providing that service.
Now, I understand one of the candidates that's supposed to be in the forefront of the polls, I don't want to mention her name, but I guess I'll mention her name anyway, Lyda Crewson. What's her position?
Yeah, from the Central West End, Lyda Crewson. Her position is that the doors need to be locked and sidewalks become beds, Right.
So for those of you who are listening, it's very clear that you have a person who's supposed to be in the forefront of this election that has no sensitivity toward poor and poor and downtrodden people. So
she's the same one that made wrote the panhandling ordinance to fine people for asking for money.
Okay, and I know there's a lot of Christians that's out here in the audience listening to us, and so please take that into account when you go and cast your ballot. And on that note, we're going to take another quick break and be right back with Conversations with Zaki Baruti. Welcome back with Zaki Baruti, and sitting in studio with me is Tom Shepard, who's a great supporter of President Lewis Reed. Real quick, because we only have a real short time, there's some other key issues that I'd like for you to address. Mm-hmm. The issue of crime, which is real predominant in different parts of the city.
Mm-hmm. We can't arrest our way out of it. We have to invest our way out of it. We need jobs. We need a mayor that's creating commerce so people can work, and we need to fund youth programs. And we need to strengthen our public schools. And President Reed has been glad to be a part of the reaccreditation of the public school district by working with his appointee on the SAB board, Richard Gaines.
Now, going back to crime, I understand part of his platform that he's advocating a goal of reducing it by...
Definitely, a goal of reducing crime by 50% in his first 2 years. And he believes he can do that, because crime is so rampant and there's been such a lack of strategy with the Public Safety Department and the police chief and the mayor of the city of St. Louis that we know we can get agencies involved, we can get all city departments involved, and work to reduce this crime.
Another critical issue is social justice and policing in our community. Address that real quick.
Oh yeah, President Reed believes that we need to work to, harder to make the police department more equitable in terms of the racial makeup of the police department. He was a supporter early on of local control of the police department, and he supported the Civilian Oversight Board that passed through the Board of Aldermen and believes it can be strengthened to where it's more useful.
As an organization, we have been pushing the concept of not only community control of the police, which you just addressed in terms of the police force being more equitable in terms of hiring and promotion, but also officers living within the community. Real quick.
Yeah, when that came out, when that change was made at the state, President Reed was against police officers, being able to move
outside of the city. Okay, then, because the time is really upon us, we don't have to cut that short. Okay. Hopefully, we can have you back in as chief administrative with Mayor Lewis Reed.
You can say Mayor Reed.
All right. On that note, we want to say tune in next week for conversations with Zaki Baruti.